Oh man, she did what? Why is the government always lying? That's not your fault. That was your mother's job. I know it sucks. It's hard, but it's fair. If we don't get our heads out of our collective asses, we're gonna be lost in the sauce. You knew he was sorry when you met him at DHS. Come on, baby girl. What's the solution? Look, I know I'm fucked up.
I know y'all don't hear any music. You probably ask yourself, why am I dancing? I feel like, what's his name? Terrence Howard in Hustle and Flow. Remember, he was like, I just got this song in my head, man. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't get it out of my head. Yeah, that's how I feel right now. I got a little beat going on in my head. Oh, got a couple people jumping on. Aaron Vince, what's up, man? Shout out to the Riz Nation. Thank you, good sir. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Angry Nerd Podcast. My name is Arshawn Wade, aka the Angry Nerd. First, I want to give shout outs to Dylan Brackley over at Savage Hippie for my graphics that you guys can't see because I'm on Facebook Live. But when you tune in on YouTube, if you didn't catch this one, you will see the graphics in the background. The Angry Nerd graphics were done by Dylan Brackley over at Savage Hippie. Local boys right here in Arkansas. Check them out. Also, my intro song that you do not hear because I'm on Facebook Live was produced by DJ Platinum Wax out of Southern Arkansas. And his record company, I'm sorry, I'm blanking out right now. His record company is Young Black Wise Guys out of Southern Arkansas. Check these guys out. What up, OSHA? How you guys doing? How's everybody doing? One's in the chat for everybody that's having a good time during this whole COVID shutdown. Anyway, tonight's topic is Rizza Islam versus Young Pharaoh. For those who don't follow the conscious movement and everything like that, Rizza Islam is obviously a Muslim brother. He's from the Nation of Islam. Excuse me. Very well spoken, very nice guy. Has a lot of good things to say, a lot of good positive information. He's had a lot of opinions about the government's involvement with COVID-19 and everything like that. And I don't know anything bad about him to say anything bad about him. And then the other young man is, I'm blanking on his name, Young Pharaoh. Young Pharaoh is one of the young brothers who has a platform on the Black conscious. I don't want to say Hotep because I've heard that was derogatory. Some people say it's good, some people say it's not, and I don't want to be disrespectful. But for lack of a better phrase, the Hotep movement. He's one of the voices who's been very prominent in the Hotep movement, Young Pharaoh. And Young Pharaoh is very critical of Rizza Islam. Apparently, Rizza Islam had some legal matters come about. Something like he and his mother and some other family members may have, because these are allegations right now. He has not been convicted of these charges. He and his mother may have or may have not defrauded the people of Los Angeles, California, people in the inner city, something like $3.8 million. I think that's what the article says that I was reading online. Because what brought this conversation up is I was watching one of my favorite podcasts and favorite radio shows, which is the Zoe What Show, which is hosted by Mr. Zoe Williams. And he always has great information on there. These guys have a good time. They have a really good back and forth just good old fashioned banter. And this particular episode, he had the young man, Young Pharaoh, on. And Young Pharaoh, who is, in my opinion, I won't say I disagree with any of his critiques of some of the leaders and voices in the Black community, but I will say he is very hard to listen to for someone who has soft ears. I will say that he is very colorful with his language when he describes people and in his assessment of people. And I think that's one thing that kind of steers people away from him, is because he talks very hard. And it was one of my listeners shared that with me, and that's why I try to abstain from using expletives, using certain colorful language. I said, because I do want to get as many listeners as I can, because I believe I have something to say, And what good is there having something to say if you don't have anyone to say it to? So I took that information that I got to heart, and I started working on expressing myself without using curse words and colorful language. So young Pharaoh goes on a tangent. He just, I don't want to share the kind of language he used to describe Brother Rizza Islam, but he is convinced that Brother Rizza did this, and Brother Rizza is a leech. He is taking advantage of downtrodden inner city black kids. He has ripped them off, and he is 100% set on this. Now, my problem with Pharaoh's point of view is that nothing is, being morally guilty and legally guilty are two very different things. Now, if he did do this, it is terrible. It is wrong. It is a tragedy to take advantage of inner city kids. That is bad. But this young man has not had his day in court yet. He has not had his day in court. And he has not been tried and convicted of this. In the United States, before we can go on bashing somebody about allegations, I could go into my nearest prosecuting attorney's office or district attorney's office and file charges on anybody for anything, rightly speaking. I could just go down there and say, hey, so-and-so did this to me. Hey, so-and-so stole that. And they will file charges on somebody. They will investigate somebody. So just because Brother Rizza Islam has these charges against him doesn't necessarily make him guilty of these things that he's been charged with. And I think that sometimes the people on the lower end of the financial spectrum, we are a little more prone to jumping on somebody who appears to be doing well for themselves if allegations are even made that they're doing something sketchy when it comes to the money. And I think that we are the worst at that. Oh man, you can go to any McDonald's and sit and listen to a couple of old people and they would just be talking up and down about somebody's pocketbook. I personally don't subscribe to the pocket watching culture. You know what I mean? Like knowing what somebody else got and who has this and who has that. I don't really get all the way down with that. There are certain instances when I will reference something like that. Like right now, if this man is the CEO of a not a Fortune 500 company, but a nonprofit organization, and he's riding around in a Bentley and he's flying around on private jets, okay, something sketchy is going on here. And I think that we can all agree that if you're supposed to be a nonprofit organization, you really do have some explaining to do when you're riding around in luxury vehicles. Personally, I have not seen the good Brother Rizza Islam displaying that type of wealth. There are other people in the so-called Hotep movement who I have seen living very well, and it appears that the allegations made against them in the to the tune of defrauding the people who are following the movement, they appear to be doing that, and they appear to be living a very expensive lifestyle right here and right out in front of us. But I want to know what you guys think. Anybody who knows anything about Brother Rizza Islam, please chime in. Anybody who knows anything about the Brother Young Pharaoh, please chime in. Because while Brother Pharaoh will vehemently express his opinion about other so-called woke leaders, there's been some sketchy stuff said about him as well. And it really gets me to wondering, is that the way of the world? Is that kind of what we do? This mentality has been seen in jails and institutions and low-income neighborhoods. The strong prey on the weak. There's been, let's just talk about it. There have been plenty of preachers who've been called upon when it comes to not dealing properly right with the money. You know what I mean? And it appears that they always target these low-income communities. It's like we are the target. I say we because, like I've said previous times, I'm like not poor where I'm living out of a cardboard box. Like I'm not all the way jacked up like that, but I'm not balling. You know what I mean? Like I'm not balling. I don't have the money for a side chick. You know what I mean? Like it's like I don't have money. You know, the COVID-19 situation has affected me financially just as well as everyone else. So I say us. Why do these people always target the lower middle class to lower class people? I'll tell you why. Because they are cowards. I'm not calling Brother Rizza Islam a coward because, like I previously stated, he has not had his day in court yet. And I don't want to demonize that man. I think it's wrong for young Pharaoh to put these things out there matter-of-factly the way he does. Like it's a fact. You can look it up. Well, we all know that fake news exists. We all know that anybody can get a charge put on them for anything. So I don't want to demonize the Brother Rizza Islam because I don't know for a fact. No one knows for a fact. Why? Because he hasn't gone to court yet. But if people are using the influence that they have over other people in the way of being a spiritual leader or a mentor, and they're using their influence to get over on a guy, to get over on someone who they have influence of, I think that you're the worst kind of person. And if hell exists, your place down there is going to be extra hot. What do you guys think? I'd like to see some comments. Please comment, like, subscribe, share this video with your friends. I'm not getting off. I'm just getting in the habit of interjecting that into the videos. I'm still getting the hang of this whole get down, doing it all by myself. World's smallest violin plays right there. Anyways, but truly, I detest a bully. I detest a moocher, a leech. I hate that. So if that brother is conducting his business that way, that's really disheartening because I root for Brother Rizza Islam because he has some really good ideas for people from the low-income communities. He has some really good things that he's been doing for a long time, for a number of years, some good things that he's been doing for people who come from low-income communities. So it would really be disheartening if these allegations prove to be true. But my main point is this. Why do we get out there and disrespect one another? We can respectfully disagree. What I really hate is the fact that young Pharaoh has a following. For all his faults, he has a following. And so does Brother Rizza Islam. And I'm not going to put the onus for the negative interactions that I saw go on the Zoa show on Brother Rizza Islam, because he did try to be respectful, and I could see where the young Pharaoh got under his skin, and he started referring to him as a little boy. And even though that's not properly right, I understand why, because he was behaving like a little boy. He was calling him out of his name. He was referring to him as the N-word. He referenced his mother in a disparaging way. And he just did some things that were really not okay on the man side of the game. And I really think that guy needs to humble himself a little bit, kind of take a chill pill, because everything that he says wasn't fact. Everything that he said wasn't right, you know. And it's like, but this kid just like, he's like vehemently disrespecting this man based on unproven allegation, unsubstantiated claims of fraud. And he has not once shown a case to where this guy has done something wrong other than this case. He hasn't shown where he's been disrespected by Brother Rizza Islam. He hasn't shown where Brother Rizza Islam has, smeared him or tried to defame his character or anything like that. His only qualm with Brother Rizza Islam would be these unsubstantiated allegations. And I'm like, if that is the only thing that you have against this guy, how are you already disrespecting him and writing him off as a leech on the people? We don't know that yet. And I think that you taint your entire movement. Everything that you're trying to do, everything that you are doing, you kind of put an asterisk next to that. Yeah, he helps out in the community, but he's an a-hole. Yeah, he helps out in the community, but he tears his own people down. He even referred to us, the viewers, as the N-word and BA N-words and all kinds of bad things. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. But I get what kind of people follow that kid. You know what I mean? The whole shake your neck culture. You know what I mean? The whole Desperate Housewives reality TV culture. You know what I mean? Like I could see a lot of those people following that guy. I see somebody saying something about both of them beg for money. I don't really look at it like that because it takes money to get this message out. We have to buy cameras and we have to buy lights. Most of us, most vloggers and YouTubers, most people are doing this out of our own pockets. Not a lot of vloggers and YouTubers have production teams. Not a lot of them have sponsorship. There's just not a lot of them that have that. And YouTube has made it so very difficult to monetize that there just aren't a lot of people making money. So yes, these guys are going to ask you to buy their books, and they are going to ask you for super chat and things like that. And I'm okay with that. I get that. But I think that we need to not be so put off by that. And I think a lot of that, good brother Kevin, I think a lot of that, to where we're like, they beg for money, a lot of that comes from us being scarred by the church. And I know they say, Arshawn, Jesus, you're always going in on the church. I'm saying a lot because a lot of us were raised in the church, so we have prejudices that we look at the rest of the world through. We have these prejudices that we view the rest of the world through because we had bad experiences in church. A lot of us, some of us that come from single parent households, a lot of us, the pastor was our first father figure. A lot of us, the pastor was our first mentor. A lot of us, the pastor was the first time I saw what I thought was a representation of a man. And then I saw the pastor do some weak old stuff, and it kind of tore that picture, that image up for me. It kind of ruined that for me. And then I consistently seen people of the cloth do wicked things. And these young men, both of them appear to represent that for us, the people who have torn away from the church and who are now seeking another type of guidance, another type of leadership. And then we see, oh man, he ain't no better than the doggone preacher. He's got allegations of stealing money. This young man's got allegations of property fraud or whatever you call it. And when you look at it like that, we automatically look for that red flag, because our perception of people like that the lens that we see them through is peppered by our perception of those kinds of folks based on our previous experiences. So, good brother Kevin, that's my whole get down with that. That's why I feel like when we hear them ask for money, hey, hit the super chat, hey, here's my Cash App, we automatically like, oh, there's the collection plate. Well, I'll speak for myself in that respect. I do feel like that at times, but being a new YouTuber and a new vlogger myself, I recognize the need for it. I recognize why. Dropping that Cash App is no different than passing the offering plate. I get it, and I agree with that, Vincent. I do. But like I said, I also understand the difficulties buying software, editing software, and things like that. I get it. I understand why. But I also understand that a lot of us have been miffed by the church folks and by other spiritual leaders. And I have some friends growing up, you find out later, the den master and their Cub Scout, they were miffed by them in a very unsavory way. But we're not going to get all off into Law and Order SVU right now. We're going to get back on topic. I think that these young men are both very powerful speakers. I think that they are very well spoken. I think that they are necessary for young people. I think that both of those guys are necessary for young people. And it's sad to see that at the end of the video, they didn't come together. They couldn't come together. Young Pharaoh, he still was like, nah, F him. He this kind of N-word, that kind of N-word. And I said, wow, man, why do we do that? Why do we do that as young people? We have this cancel culture. And growing up, like, me and my friends didn't agree on anything. One of the brothers in the chat, Kevin Palmer, has been my friend for like 20 years. We almost never agree. And it seems like that's what friendship was built on, is our differences. Now we can only be friends if we do all the same stuff, if we agree to the same posts, if we have the same views, thoughts, and opinions. These differences are what draw us to each other. But these youngsters have this cancel culture to where if you're not riding my wave, then it's F you. And I think that that's so wrong. because I think that arguing amongst friends is how you sharpen your razor. You know what I mean? That's how you develop your wit, your quickness. It's like that's necessary. It's vital. I only hang out with people like me. That would be a bland, drab, horrible world if I only hung out with people like me. And it takes all sorts. So I really wish we could come off of that. And even if we decide, look, I don't all the way agree with the way you run your program, but I do respect the fact that you're trying to do something good. And because I come from a place in my heart of trying to do something good for young people, because the leaders have failed us. Oh, there's a lot of leaders that have failed us as young people. Millennials, that's what they refer to us as. I'm sorry, man. I used to smoke reefer when I was a youngster, and I also picked up a hobby called mixed martial arts, where I get socked in the face a few hundred times a week. So I tend to forget things and have a slip of the mind once in a while. Once in a while, I have a slip of the mind. But getting back to my point, I find it very sad that these young men can't come together, because I get the fact that we need leadership. We need some leadership in these communities, especially in the low-income communities, because when I was growing up, there used to be a rec center, there used to be a youth center, there used to be somewhere that we could go play basketball, and I just don't see a lot of that. And for these guys, and I know Rizza Islam is out of California, and it slips my mind where young Pharaoh is from. But if I'm thinking the right way, they're on different sides of the country. But you guys are doing the same thing. Think how many more young people you could help if you put aside your petty grievances. If you really put aside the bull crap, the ends justify the means. You know what? You don't have to believe like me. You don't have to be Hotep. You don't have to be Muslim. You don't have to do it exactly the way I do it. That's what I thought Philly, because he always says "ar." They sound like pirates out that way for some reason to me. Yeah, we're going to do something. Yeah, it's Philly. That's where he's from. But I wish we could put aside these petty grievances, because if your goal is to help, if your goal is to be a blessing, you are putting a monkey wrench into your own program, because you're putting up this barrier against somebody who could be an ally. See, that's what makes me think it's ego that's involved. Maybe you really aren't trying to help people. Maybe you're clout chasing on the shoulders of helping people. Maybe that's what you're doing. Now, personally, I don't believe that that's what either of these young men are doing. I don't believe that, but it appears to be that way when you can't set aside petty grievances for the greater good. If we're talking about doing good, let's talk about setting aside petty grievances for the greater good. The American mafia was able to set aside petty grievances for the greater good, and their greater good was selling dope. Their greater good was running brothels. And they set aside petty grievances, and when we say petty grievances, we're talking about kids and brothers and stuff that had been killed. We'll set all that aside so we can continue to make money. Now, these men were criminals, and they were able to set aside grievances in order to progress their agenda. And I feel like if you come from a pure place in your movement, in your message, then you should most certainly be able to say, you know what? I don't care what they're talking about that guy. He's trying to do something righteous. I'm trying to do something righteous. Let's link up. We're doing the same thing. Nobody's making a whole bunch of money off of it. Nobody's just making buku money. But if you pool your resources and band together, then we can affect some positive change in these low-income communities. And I know that there are people who are going to say, Arshawn, why are you saying low-income communities? I address the elephant in the room because I ain't all the way messed up. But I say that because everything ain't only the black community. I am black first. I will say that to you, my white brethren. But I grew up in a low-income area. And you want to know what I remember about that low-income area? I had friends who were white. I had friends who were Hispanic. I had friends who were Indian. And I had other fellow black people. Poverty doesn't discriminate. And I have to say low income community because all of our poor behinds were all down there in North Tulsa together. We could roast each other about who got what shoes and who got what shirt, but at the end of the day, all of us stayed right there in North Tulsa. And I hate that. I hate to exclude any of my brothers in the struggle because I know that everybody with white skin is not privileged. I know that. But I am aware that there are some things, you know what I mean, the skin, you know, the complexion for the connection will get you there. And that's why we have to stay connected, because those people up there in the higher ups, they don't care nothing about that. The same country club that I can't get in, my white homeboy, Jared Shirtliff can't get in there neither. I'll put you on blast, Jared. The same country club that won't let me in, won't let Jared in. And I love Jared because he is one of my white brethren who is not disillusioned by the foolishness. He's aware of that too. It's about economics. And if that's what it's about, what we don't need is to have brothers who are looking to pull the poor people up at odds. That's what we don't need. My only prayer while I was watching those two young men go back and forth, my only prayer was, please, Most High, put somebody around that kid that he will listen to. Because these two young brothers can be something magnificent for young people. They can be what we are looking for. Why do you think that these young kids are in love with the twerk videos or the stack of money stuck up to their phone? They are hollow on the inside. They have a God-shaped hole that they try to fill with manly things. And they need people that they can look up to and that they can respect. They need people that they can listen to, people who sound like them, people who come from where they come from. And we cannot do that if we are at odds with each other. And it's 100% true, Aaron. We will all be standing outside. But I will tell you, the media is a wicked, wicked device. That is a mean two-edged sword, man. Because the media will stir that pot. The media will stir a pot like that. Why? Because the powers that be control the media. And they don't want all of our broke asses, they don't want all of our broke behinds banding together, putting our money together and buying up land and building communes. They don't want us talking like that. Because that's what some of the things that these young brothers are doing. I'm not no Muslim. I don't get down with religion at all. But I do love the way that Minister Louis Farrakhan talks about buying up these vacant lots in your neighborhood, starting community gardens, building community centers, building a place for our kids to go hang out so that they're not hanging out on the corner with Boo Boo and Ray Ray. That's one thing I will say. They have an ironclad design for uplifting low-income communities. But the media, that wicked double-tongued beast, will keep poor people fighting amongst themselves. That's what we're doing. That's what I see these two brothers doing. That's what I see. I see these brothers tearing each other down instead of building together. Instead of building together. They let the media stir the pot. They let social media stir the pot. They don't realize that some of these guys who are giving them hoorah are agents that are sent there to keep poor people down. Because there are some poor people who are going to, eventually it's going to crumble. Believe that. Because people are sick and tired. People are sick and tired. But what we have to do is when we hear the voices of our generation at odds with each other, that's when we need to slide in the DMs. Hey man, that was a little wrong what you said, young Pharaoh. Hey brother Rizza, maybe you should have handled that little brother a little bit differently. You're a little older. Maybe you should have handled him a little differently. Hey, good brother. We decide what is acceptable. As long as we accept bullcrap, people are going to give us bullcrap. What do you mean by that, Arshawn? This is what I mean. When they go on these tirades, get on these videos, and when they go on these tirades and get on these videos, trashing the next man who's doing the same work that he's doing, in unison, we need to be saying, hey man, that ain't okay. That's not okay. We need to start handling our business behind closed doors. If we're going to criticize one another, if we're going to critique one another, we know that we are working for a common goal. We're working for a common goal. And if we're going to criticize each other, we need to do that behind closed doors. And I feel like that's where that conversation with young Pharaoh and Brother Rizza Islam should have happened. And that should have happened behind closed doors, not on the radio, not on YouTube. It shouldn't be there. They should have had that conversation behind closed doors because, hey, good brother, at the end of the day, we have a goal. We are trying to help people in low-income communities. Let's stick to that. Let's stick to that. Let's start building bridges. Let's start mending fences. And I have some people say it's a too simplistic view of things. This is the kind of supervisor I am at work. Long as these boys ain't put hands on each other, we can fix it. And that's just the kind of supervisor I am. Two guys get after it and they get to arguing and everything like that. Long as ain't nobody laid hands, I feel like we can fix anything. And these two young brothers haven't laid hands on each other. So I believe, this might be naive of me, but I believe that if ain't nobody beat nobody up, we can fix it. Because we need these young men. These young men are integral to our young people moving forward in a positive, productive way. But if they at odds, everything that they're working on is going to crumble. These guys really need to link up. And anybody that knows anything about Brother Rizza Islam, anybody that knows anything about Brother Young Pharaoh, I encourage you to say something on their post. I encourage you to slide in the DM. You slide in the DM for that dusty female who ain't worth a quarter. Oh, I know. I got plenty of homies. Okay, I'll stop. I've slid in the DMs of a dusty female or two in my day. But seriously, on a serious note, we need to encourage these guys to set aside petty grievances because look out there, people. Our kids are crazy. We thought we were crazy? No, our kids are crazy. These kids are crazy as all get out. They don't have an anchor. And when they're listening to certain people, what we don't want is a us versus them mentality created amongst our young people. We don't want to have the us versus them dynamics demonstrated with our young people. So when we have these young leaders like Brother Rizza Islam and Brother Young Pharaoh at odds with each other, especially those of us who are over 30, if you're over 30, it is your responsibility. It's your duty. It is 100% your duty to pull a youngster to the side and say, hey man, let's rap a taste. And before I get out of here, I want to say this because I have been guilty of it. I'm not going to talk trash on nobody without first talking trash on Arshawn. We got to stop being scared of these kids too. I know I see them little hard looking jokers at the gas station now, and I look the other way and go on about my business. Let me get 10 on pump one. And I go on about my business. We have got to stop being afraid of these young brothers because they only have that hard look because ain't nobody putting no fat on their head. They don't know that, man, you don't look hard. You look miserable. You look miserable. And they don't realize that misery is written on their face. They think they look tough. You don't. You look miserable. And we need to start showing some love, care, and concern for these young men. And we need to stop being afraid. I know I see 2 or 3 of these youngsters every now and again walk down my street and I hit the alarm on my car. Boop, boop. I make sure that my door's locked. And one day I was sitting there and I was in the process of hitting the alarm. And I said, man, that's wrong, man. They're just kids. They're just kids. You know, and we gotta exercise some courage. I'm not, without getting all the way off into it, because I hate those guys that talk like, yeah, I used to be this and I used to be that. People know me, and they know who I used to be. And there are people who are around me now, like, I would have never known, like, if I'd have just met you today, you could have never told me that you ever done no gangster stuff, you know, because I am a square, and I live that way, and I pride myself on it. You couldn't get me around none of that foolishness I used to be associated with. But you have to tap into that courage that you had then to reach out to these young men now, to reach out to these young ladies now, because it's not fair that you lived hell, you came through hell, and you don't reach back and try to help these young people. You have survived. Arshawn has survived the streets, jail, all of that, gang banging, drugs, survived all that. Shame on you, Arshawn, if you don't reach out and try to bless some of these kids with some of that knowledge that you have. Shame on you, Arshawn. I'm charging myself as much as anybody who is under the sound of my voice to reach out. I know what my friends list look like. I know there's a bunch of them. Out of the people that's on there right now, I count 3 felons on. I count 3 felons out of the viewers that are on right now. You got to reach back and you got to give back. And that's what we have to do. And when we see these young brothers out here, like Rizza Islam and like young Pharaoh, who have something special, because I believe that these are special young men. It's our duty as survivors of poverty, as survivors of the hood, as survivors of the street life. It's our duty, 100% our duty, to reach back and help them. I've heard it said, each one teach one. And I'm going to leave you guys with that. Thank you for listening. My name is Arshawn Wade, a.k.a. The Angry Nerd.